Now let's look at input validation, and I'm going to start by getting rid of this. I'm just going to delete anyway, and then I'm going to get rid of the reference to it, and I don't need any of this right now. So let's take the simple case of input validation. So let's go ahead and create a new library file, Python, and we'll call this input. And then inside of input py, we're going to define some helper functions that we can use for input validation. So the first one is going to be a yes or no function. So it's going to be a function that returns a Boolean value, true or false, and it's going to be called y or n, and it's going to take a prompt string. So the first thing it's going to do is display the prompt, and then it's going to input a y or n string, which we have to declare. And then we want to check whether the user actually typed y or n. And if they typed y, then we want to return true from our function. If they typed n, we want to return false. And if they returned any other value, then we want to loop back and have them re-enter the input. So it's going to keep asking them to enter a value until they enter something that's a y or an n. So we're going to need to do a loop here. You really want this to be a do-while loop. So do, and then if y or n is equal lowercase y, or y or n is equal uppercase y, then return true. Else, if y or n is lowercase n, or y or n is equal uppercase n, then return false. And if neither of those things is true, then we want to display an error message. So please enter either y or n. And then we want to loop back, display the prompt again, and then input y or n string. So I'm actually going to put that inside the loop here. And then just close the loop off while true. So since writing do loops in Python is a little odd, I'm going to rewrite this as a while loop. So while true, and then end while. And then here I'm going to end function. So that should be correct. Let's go ahead and write the Python code for that. Actually, capital true in Python. And now I don't have to print and then input. I can, in Python, I can just say y or n string equal input prompt, and then if y or n string, so I got that wrong up here. So let me go ahead and fix my pseudocode. Okay, that looks good. So if y or n string is equal lowercase y, or y or n string is equal uppercase y, then return true. Elif y or n string is equal n, or uppercase n, return false. And then that's the end of my if statement. So if I get here, that means something's wrong. And then that's the end of my while, and also the end of my function. So I'm going to save this, Control S to save. And this should be a single equal sign, because I'm assigning the value. And I think that's it for this one. So now let's go ahead and try it. So I'm going to go into my lesson6.py. I'm going to import my input library. And then I'm going to just print the value that's returned by y or n. Do you like programming? y/n. Actually, let's write it like this. And then this is in the input library. So let's go ahead and try this. Do I like programming? And if I type anything other than y or n, it loops back, tells me please enter y or n. But then if I type y, it returns true, prints true at the end. And if I type n, then I get false. So now I could write a program like so. So there's a simple program that gets my input and then outputs either I'm glad programming is fun or that's too bad, I hope you learn to like it over time. And let's write the code for that. there's my input. And let me just copy this text. And I'll copy this whole text too. And there's my program. So let's call it. And we'll run the program. Do you like programming? Yes, I'm glad. Programming is fun. Capital N. That's too bad. I hope you learn to like it over time. And if I type anything else, it gives me an error and asks me again. So that's validating Boolean input. In the next video, we'll look at numeric input.